Welcome back. We're here live at reInvent. This is AWS On Air. If you're watching for the first time, we cover launches, we cover new products, new features, we cover startups, partners, and customers. Chad, tell the people who you are.
Hey, my name's Chad Lacey. I'm a global sales strategist with AWS. And I'm here with my new friend, Patrick from Capital One. Patrick, it's good to have you.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
So first, let's just set the stage. Why don't you tell everybody kind of your role? Because they hear Capital One, I think they're going to hear one story, but we're going to hear a totally different story.
So I'm a senior director of product management in Capital One Software. Capital One Software is a new line of business at Capital One that is dedicated to bringing to market a number of cloud and data management products that we've built internally.
So I mean, Chad and I were talking beforehand, and he was a little surprised, honestly, with the venture that you all are engaged with here. I'll be honest, it didn't surprise me at all, because when I think of Capital One, I think, software innovators, cloud innovators, that's what my mind goes to. So we're here to talk specifically about what you all are doing with Slingshot, right?
That's right. Our journey over the last 6 years has been pretty remarkable when you think about our size and our scale. We shut down our owned and operated data centers. We went all in on AWS. Thank you, by the way, for making that possible.
I'll take credit. It was all me. You're welcome, Patrick.
We completely re-architected our data ecosystem in the cloud. And along the way, we had to build a number of products and platforms that the market wasn't offering yet that would enable us to operate at scale. One of the other platforms that we really dove headfirst into was Snowflake.
Yep.
It's a very robust data cloud. It enables our business teams to be super productive. It's enabled us to roll out different federated data management models that enables our teams to be more efficient.
Right.
But one of the first kind of tasks that you need to complete when you're rolling out Snowflake is figuring out how you're going to manage this unique infrastructure that they've developed.
Yes.
Where now storage is separate from compute in your data warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back in the old days, a user could run a bad query, and all it would do was impact the performance of their friends and colleagues down the road. These days, if you write a bad query, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so we had to put good cost controls in place from the start that would enable us to move to the cloud as quickly as possible. Because we made some pretty big commitments about shutting down our data centers.
Right. Storage and compute too. The separation for me also was, you no longer had to scale both together.
That's right.
Right?
That
was massive.
And it's super powerful, but with that power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Capital One Slingshot, which we're demoing at our booth here, and you can find out more at capitalone.com/software, enables companies to set the rules of the road around infrastructure management, set the rules of the road around cost governance and cost control, and then turn over the actual tasks of managing infrastructure to the business teams that are using that compute. We had aggressive deadlines. We didn't want our shared services teams to be a bottleneck, so we needed to figure out creative ways to get our teams to move quickly.
Yeah, and what I love about this is that the genesis of this was you were solving problems for Capital One. But then you would come to conferences like reInvent, you'd meet other customers, and you start telling your story, and these customers were saying, oh, I have the same problem. I'm going down the same road. Tell me how you did it.
We became public with Capital One Software in June. We've been talking to a number of prospects along the way, and it would kind of be weird if we didn't hear, you sound like us just 5 years down the line. Would you consider making some of these things that you build internally available to the market? And so we go, yeah, why not? And when we took a look around and said, what really drove value internally, with this Slingshot product, we saved about 27% on our projected Snowflake costs. We eliminated 55,000 hours of manual activity from our data engineering teams by completely eliminating change orders. We reduced our cost per query by 43%, and we enabled our teams to onboard over 450 new use cases completely self-service.
Yeah. So you're totally accelerating your own adoption of Snowflake.
That's right.
But now you're enabling other customers to accelerate their adoption.
That's right. And infrastructure management isn't the only place where we needed to invest. When you move to the cloud, you're now operating in an environment with way more data coming from way more sources, being stored in way more places, and yesterday's centralized data management models aren't going to work anymore.
Right.
But you don't want to completely decentralize your data management because you're going to add a bunch of risk to your company. So, what we realized is to enable what we call federated data management of central policy, central tooling, federated ownership, we needed to build a number of experiences across data publishing, data consumption, data governance, and infrastructure management. And so we're really excited about the breadth of capabilities that we can bring to the market in an industry agnostic way.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we get asked in the booth all the time is this product just for financial services companies? Because they think Capital One, you're a bank,
Right.
But the great thing about what we've built is it truly is industry agnostic. If you're an insurance company, you want to save money on cloud spend the same way a retail company does or a consumer packaged goods company does. And so we're really excited not only about the breadth of capabilities that we've built, but also the breadth of customers that we can support.
I mean, Patrick, when I'm listening to this, going back to your decision as Capital One in 2020 to get out of the data center, right? The quiddity or essence of that decision for me seems like what a lot of customers come to us and say is, we want to focus on driving the business value, right? You're banking and finance. That's what Capital One does. You also just so happen to be an amazing, talented software team as well. But at the same time, you're really making that software to drive adoption of your banking and finance. It sounds like with Slingshot and the other ventures through Capital One software, you're taking the same philosophy for other companies. Is, hey, let's get some of this complicated stuff that's not really adding value to your day-to-day operations as a development team.
Yep.
Get it off the table so you can focus. Is that how you build software?
That's sort of how we think about it. It's all about empowering the associates at our company to be more productive.
Okay.
Yesterday's data management models where you have a central team that's responsible for all of the company's important data, that only scales as the team scales, and you can't throw bodies at this problem these days. And so if you want to enable your business to operate at the speed that technology requires, it's all about unlocking the power of your people. And so, how do you enable them to publish their own data? How do you enable them to manage their own data? How do you enable teams that own data sets to find out who's using it and make sure their downstream consumers are notified of any changes that are upcoming? How do you just enable all of your people to be more productive?
Yeah. So it's interesting to me because AWS and Capital One have kind of had a kindred spirits relationship, right? And the stories still resonate because when AWS came around, the question was, what does Amazon know about running a data center and compute and database? And I'm sure you're probably like, well, what does Capital One know about running software and cloud? And it's like, we happen to know a lot about it, right?
Yeah, and I think the message is starting to get out because we're getting fewer and fewer people asking us, wait, how come Capital One has a booth at reInvent?
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, Capital One is here because they are a leader in the cloud, because they're a leader in adopting these technologies. Because they've been able to operationalize a heavily regulated business in this new environment.
Yeah, I liked your booth too. You got the big level up sign up there too. Like, it's time to level up, everybody. Come on.
I don't know if you noticed, we were playing a little bit of the U.S. Iran World Cup match yesterday. Go Team USA.
Nice. That's awesome.
Patrick, when I talk with customers about data, one of the biggest challenges I hear all the time is, well, we've got all this data stored. We can dump things in S3, but what do we do with it? Like, how do we get value? Do you see Slingshot as accelerating that time to actually getting value out of your data instead of just storing it, right? So all the things around storing your data.
The first value that Slingshot is delivering is really about helping you control costs in the cloud, particularly with Snowflake.
Great.
That is the foundation that every other use case is going to be built on, because as I was talking about before with this federated data management model, it can get a little expensive, or at least more expensive than you thought when you started the journey. We've been able to, through some innovative mechanisms we've built internally, help our teams find, evaluate, and use the right data in sort of that sea of everything that's out there. But really what we're offering now is a way to help you manage your spend.
That's great, because getting the value is one aspect of why you spend the money to store it, but even if you could reduce the cost of storing it, Makes it, you
That's
can
right.
store more, you can get more value out of the data. Unfortunately, we are running short of time here, but Patrick, thank you for coming and sharing this with, and go check out the booth if you're here at reInvent.
Absolutely.
It is an amazing booth.
It's a great booth if you're here, and if you're not, capitalone.com/software.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right, stick around. We will be right back with more on AWS On Air.